I've always defined peace by its sounds. The soft canopy of bridge planks, the splash of trout below, and the whisper of wind through the pine branches. For 15 years, my little bridge carried nothing heavier than a pickup truck. Sometimes the neighbor's kids on bikes, and sometimes only Safi barking at his reflection. Then one morning, I heard a new sound, the growl of a cement truck, the kind that announces big projects. Behind the driver stood Nazine, waving as if the entire valley belonged to her. When I stepped outside, the bridge trembled, the water below turned muddy, and my pulse roared in my ears. I asked, "What are you doing here?" She smiled and said, "Maybe you should have built a stronger bridge, Arif." At that moment, I knew this wasn't about cement. It was about control. She thought she could cross my boundaries the same way she crossed my bridge. She was row the promise and the line. This stream doesn't care about calendars. Snow melts in spring. By August, it turns to glass. 15 years ago, when I signed the deed for this land, I built that bridge with my own hands. Rashid helped me dig the piles, set the beams, and seal the planks, while Safi watched from the shore. It wasn't a trophy. It was a promise, a path home without asking permission. Promises become borders. People forget that. When the Homeowners Association HOA formed 2 years ago, I didn't object. I even paid the first fee, $50 for beautification. But HOAs are like ivy, slow, polite, and strangling if left alone. Nazine took charge, clipboard in hand, emergency emails, and that tone in her memos people fear. Notices and maps. Nazine's first notice came wrapped in courtesy. Remove non-compliant structures within front boundaries. Attached was a photo, my canoe rack. I replied politely with my certified survey. My frontage begins at the back county right-of-way, not the creek. She smiled and replied, "The bridge is private." Yes, and but under community access. At the board meeting, she brought a laminated map, wrong scale, wrong topography, the creek drawn like a cartoon. With her pen she pointed, "Both ends connect to community pathways, therefore this falls under the board's purview." I raised my certified survey, boundaries marked in iron, law written in ink. The neighbors shuffled in their chairs. Some eyes darted between papers. Nazine said, "We'll consult on this." Then came the truth. "We'll do as we please." The first strike 2 weeks later. I saw the first cement truck rolling over my bridge at dawn. The driver waved, friendly, like nothing was wrong. I drove a cedar post by the river. Hung a reflective sign, "Private bridge, 5-ton limit." Then I chained it shut. "People respect chains more than words," Nazine called. "This is about cooperation," she said. I replied, "Cooperation happens between equals. Between a deed and a committee, it's trespass." By noon, the chain was cut. The sign gone, replaced by a pastel-colored note zip-tied to the post. "Non-compliance. Remove within 24 hours or face a fine." I took photos, boot prints, broken lock pieces near the shore. Paper lies. Photographs don't. The neighbors began to whisper, Huma quietly supportive, Danish sharply critical in the online forum. The meeting. Nazine called another meeting. The chairs were set in a circle. People who seek control love circular arrangements. They look like dialogue but feel like trial. Projector slides flashed images of future tennis courts and smiling clip art families. I laid my papers on the table. Warranty deed, recorded plat, county GIS printout, and a letter from the road commission stating plainly that the public right-of-way ends at the gravel lane and does not include any bridge structure crossing water. Nazine said, "We'll consult our lawyer. Construction continues meanwhile," I said. "As long as trespass continues, I'll document it." She went silent. I thought about the bolts, joist hangers, and the weight that bridge had carried for years. I never doubted the bridge. I doubted people. Planning Rashid came by, an old friend, warm smile, thermos in his toolbox. We spread out the original bridge plans. In the middle were reinforcement plates that, if altered just so, would shift heavy loads outward toward the beams. We decided to give a quiet engineering lesson. No harm, no traps. Just a demonstration of how stress behaves when arrogance meets physics. We installed shear pins designed to bend under overload and set up motion-triggered cameras to record every truck, driver, and license plate. We left the bridge safe for regular use, but marked for heavy punishment under weight. We tested it. My pickup crossed fine. Everything was ready, like a stage before opening night. The first test Nazine announced the big concrete pump's arrival. Cars lined the road, dust rising. I turned on the cameras and saw her standing proudly behind the truck, blueprints rolled in hand like she was conducting an orchestra. The first truck crossed, a faint creak, the planks flexing. The second truck reached the center. The shear pins groaned and twisted, a subtle warning. The driver paused, feeling the bridge shift beneath him. The collapse and the whirlpool. Few days later, when the third convoy tried again, it happened. The shear pins snapped with a sharp crack. The bridge dipped slightly, redirecting its weight. A section of cement load tumbled into the water like a silver ribbon breaking. The front axle of the truck sank into the stream. Nazine screamed. Pride shattered. Neighbors gathered along the bank, watching in stunned silence. A police officer arrived. Nazine rushed to file a complaint, but the officer reviewed the footage, the signs, the witnesses. He said simply, "This is private property. The boundaries are clear." I quietly archived every frame. Rashid patted my shoulder. "Not out of joy, but you did what had to be done." Nazine filed complaints with both the county and the court. She sent a mass email accusing me of unsafe behavior, malicious intent, and destruction of community infrastructure. My reply was simple. I recorded everything. I posted every sign. What happened was the result of their arrogance, not my design. The neighbors divided. Some supported me. Others clung to Nazine's vision of progress. Huma came by in the evening with pickles and stories. "I'm with you," she said. Danish wrote on the forum. "Bridges are meant to connect, not to divide. That's the world that the stories burn. And people draw their lines." I sent the lawyer a full copy of the footage. Every frame backed up on 3 drives. Nazine's anger burned hotter, but we had the evidence. The bridge stood firm, scarred but unbroken. It had drawn its line clearly. It taught a lesson, the limits of land, of dignity, and of power. The story isn't over. It's just a chapter. Because when someone believes they can claim another's ground, they've already lost their way. We proved that sometimes silence draws the loudest boundaries. And when neighbors retell this story, they'll remember that every promise speaks a language of its own, one carved into the grain of a bridge.